stuff. And so a lot of this I'm gonna go at like chronologically and try to like
Okay.
frame the progression of the amateur scene from humble beginnings to LCS Proving Grounds, which is financially backed more, I think, at this point, right? So
Yeah, actually sponsored by Riot.
yeah. So it's generally looking better in that sense. But like, when you're first coming in, right? Like, did you play other games, other MOBAs before this, or what was this like your first like serious game?
So, I mean, in terms of serious, it was probably my first really serious game. But I mean, I used to play like everything under the sun, right? Like, I played League, I played WoW, I played StarCraft. I took a break from League to play Dota, right? I came back to League again. But in terms of like actually like really trying hard and like competitively, League is definitely the first title that I thought I had a chance to do anything like really at a high level.
And when you first played League, was mid your first role? Did you have that from other games, or what
Uh,
gravitated you towards
it's
that?
hard to remember because I started playing in season one. So it's been whatever 10 something years ago now for me. But I do remember like mid was always my main role, at
Yeah.
least. Like all the characters that I like to play were all mid. Like I used to play like old Katarina and old Akali, stuff like that.
Oh, you were one of those
Um,
guys.
yeah, I mean, I was a silver, I was some silver trash back then. I wasn't really so good at the game. But yeah, I've been a mid player for as long as I can remember.
Okay. And so when you're coming in, I see your first team was Don Esports, which I have a interesting tidbit about that. But was it more casual then? I'm assuming. Like, what was kind of the general atmosphere?
I mean, compared to now, it definitely was more casual, right?
Hmm.
Like everybody didn't have as serious of aspirations. People didn't have as much experience, right? So like we were just kind of happy to be able to get together and play some tournaments. Um, in a way, it was also easier because there was a lot less competition. Back then there
Yeah.
weren't as many teams, definitely not as many strong teams
Yeah.
as have cropped up in the past couple years. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was mostly just about like playing, having some fun, and because everybody had like other stuff to do, people had school, people had work. It wasn't like recently where you can literally dedicate your life to the game if you want. So we would have scrims get canceled because someone's dog like got outside or whatever, some shit. Versus nowadays where like I wake up, I have a scheduled scrim block. It's gonna last for this amount of time. We're gonna have this much review, right? And then I'm going to be expected to play this much solo queue and review that, right? It was a lot. Things were, I guess, a lot more free back then.
And what you said is very interesting on my tidbit because at that time, I don't remember if it was in 2018. I don't remember exactly, but I played for Donnie Sports on like a low diamond team, like D4,
Yeah.
D3 range. So I know like Kelix and all them. Like I remember all that situation. So I don't know. I
Oh
just
my
thought that was really
gosh.
cool. It would have been
Yeah.
really cool if I could remember if I was in 2018. But
No, I mean Dawn was crazy because they started so many things. They had so many people that you just ended up making connections. Like there's
yep.
still some people who message me and be like, "Hey, I remember you from when we were on Dawn," and I'm sorry, there was like 50 people. I don't remember you, but that's cool, you know?
Yeah, I like the whole like Discord atmosphere of like the amateur. Well, for me, I just call it competitive because even
Yeah,
at like low plat or whatever, you're not calling it amateur, right? But
yeah.
that the playing with five people, having a team, I don't know. I just like that general atmosphere a lot more than solo queue. But moving on now from Donnie Sports, AZO Black takes over. Y'all get some really good results at UPL. At that time, you had a guy named Hayami on your team, and he recently retired. But I just thought that was interesting, and that's gonna be even more interesting. Like the people that you play with from before and how they progress along with you, they all take very different paths from there. And unfortunately, Hayami wasn't meant for the scene, but Panda he's still going strong, and y'all played against him on AZO Esports in the UPL. Y'all got first in regular season, third in the playoffs, and how do you think that other players, like as far as the path they take, like going to other regions, trying to go to a lower region, or going to academy straight up, do you think it's better to just take your shot off the jump, or try to take a safer path?
I mean, it's so hard to tell because in a lot of ways, while the scene is like very developed, and we have the LCS that exists, and we have this academy system, a lot of it is still the Wild West, and it's hard to know exactly what's going to happen, right? Like when Panda got his chance to go play for Echo Fox, right? I think he was probably just planning on, sitting out in academy, improving, getting better at the game. But because of the roster issues they had with Rush and things like that, he ended up having to move up to LCS and play,
Yep.
right? Um, and that's just the stuff that you can never fathom, you can never expect is going to happen, right? And so in the end, it's really hard to know what's the right path until it's all over in the end, right?
Hmm.
And you can have some regrets, but really you just have to be confident with whatever path that you did end up taking, whichever one you ended up choosing.
Hmm.
And whatever happened in the end, you got to know that you did your best.
Yeah, and that ties back into some other things that are going on right now, as far as like Leader getting his shot after a kind of
Hmm.
similar situation, which I'm a big Leader fan myself, and I'm sure you are as well. He plays a lot of those melee champions, Silas especially. I know that's one of your favorites.
Yeah, yeah.
What brings you, especially I saw especially in Proving Grounds, a lot of Silas, a lot of Victor. What drags you as far as when we're playing Silas, when we're playing Victor, in an overall comp?
So, I mean, a lot of it was down to our practice. Because of the way the format worked this year, when we qualified, we then had like a full month of practice to just, do whatever we wanted. And then obviously the tournament itself was also a month long, where we had like a week between matches. So a lot of it just came down to, trying to figure out what worked in practice and trying to emulate that on stage. So some of the signature picks that I sort of came out with towards the end of PG, stuff like the Set, the Silas, or stuff like even the Seraphine, which is a bit of a different flavor. Those were just
Hmm.
the picks that we knew we could have the most success with, and we had the best game plans with. Um, and definitely also it's nice to play something that's a little more flashy than just playing Oriana, Victor, all this stuff every single game.
Hmm.
Um, and it also has to do just like with certain like mentality when I'm going up against these other players, right? It's not that I'm like disrespecting them by picking these melee champions. It's actually that I respect them a lot. And I think like, oh, there's this person's a really good Oriana or this person's a really good Victor. Like I need to have something prepared to pick into it. I can't just match into it. I need to have my own strategy, my own plan available and ready to go. Um, so yeah, that's where a lot of those niche picks come from.
Got you. And so coming back here, I noticed. I don't know if you really remember this, but y'all lost two finals in a row to Yunbi, and then right before, I think, yeah, it was your first tournament with a new esports, which ends up being one of your staple teams. You managed to get some revenge there. Did you feel that way at the time, or was it really not affecting?
I'll be honest, I don't even remember losing to Yunbi
It was
because
Lotus
because
Esports.
yeah, because that was at the beginning of 2019 season, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the beginning of our 2019 season was such a mess that I think I've written most of it from my memory.
Mm,
Because we had a bunch of different rosters, we were trying to figure things out. Because at the time, I didn't even know if I wanted to play amateur again. Like I didn't know what was going on until like this really good roster popped up, and then they wanted to play with me, but then like half the players left, so it was all a complete mess. So, at the time, I guess I really didn't think much of it. Um, Definitely, though, getting to play against some of these players like Yunbi, like Jojo that I've been told are super good, and I've seen them in solo queue a couple times,
yep.
but never really had the chance to, go at them one on one or in with the team.
Mm,
It's definitely fun to like match up against those players and really, you get to cement yourself as like, no, I'm the better player. I'm on the better team. Like we're the best. So
yeah. And speaking of that, I want to talk to you about Zig and your kind of relationship with him, especially as he transitions from your top laner to now your main coach. What was that kind of like? How does this coaching style work exactly?
so not gonna lie, it was definitely a little rough at the beginning. Him being basically new to coaching, there was a lot of aspects of coaching that are very different from playing that you don't pick up right away. But the fact that he's been playing for so long and had so much knowledge, really helped to bridge that gap, right? Especially for me as a mid laner, he plays a bunch of the champions that were popular mid. I mean, when Pantheon was broken, he was teaching me how to play that. He's a huge fan of Set as well, so we would talk about that champion. Um, and then yeah, over time, as he got more used to coaching, as I got more used to his coaching style, he's come into his own as a coach, and I think that teams are sleeping on him a little bit right now because honestly, on No Org, if you look at it, at the beginning of our split this year. was kind of rough. You know, we were dropping a lot of games. We weren't having very clean sets. But then Zig and Stunt as well, our two coaches stepped in and, you know, kind of whipped us into shape. And, you know, I attribute a lot of our success, especially in the later half of the split, to our coaches.
Awesome. Um, Another person I wanted to ask you about was Solo when you played with the Tyler One Championship
Yeah.
Series. I heard he's going back to starting on Golden Guardians now. What There's this general perspective, you know, he's toxic, all this kind of stuff. I just think he's having fun with it. What's your general take on him?
I mean, I think he's definitely one of those players that gets more tilted than others. In solo queue he'll type whatever. In competitive though, like it's not that bad. Especially because you have 5 people. Even if one person gets tilted, everybody else can keep the team morale up and keep things going.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, we were only together for a short time, so I don't remember that much. But from what I remember, like he was just a super solid player. Like I'm obviously shocked whenever he, wasn't back in LCS this spring split and stuff like that. Um, and people who like to type a lot actually don't necessarily tend to always talk that much because it's hard to flame your teammates when you're in comms with them, right? You
Yeah.
can't just say, "Man, you're so dog shit, you're so bad, you're so awful," right? So, I hope he has good success. I will keep muting him in solo queue, but it's just how it goes.
Okay, one thing I want to talk about is generally how no org functioned going into proving grounds. It seemed like sometimes we're getting the 1-3-1 variant, sometimes we're getting more of the team fight variant, and then a lot of the times we're pulling out some crazy comebacks. Specifically in the second game versus Golden Guardians, I don't know if we want to pull out the clip and all this, but y'all fought over a Baron for like 3 minutes straight. Like
Yeah.
actually. So this leads me on to the question as like, what were the comms there, and like, who generally is like the main voice, I guess.
So I honestly think a lot of it comes down to our team atmosphere. We as a team, we were there to win. We were there to all prove ourselves, right? Every single person on our team had something to prove because we had all been passed up. We had all been passed up by these LCS orgs for Academy or LCS. So we had something to prove to show that we deserved a spot to play pro. We deserved our chance. And so I think that kept us really scrappy. We felt like we were never down. We were never out. We always had another chance to take another fight. I also have to attribute some of it to Zig as well, being our coach. He loves the LPL scrappy fight, 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 fight to the death play style, right? He likes champions like Pantheon and Set who can just fight, fight, fight to the death. And so at that point too, we had been playing together for so long, and we played so many stage games because of the amateur schedule. I think that we really just all trusted each other, right? When Viper's saying he's going, and towards the end of that play, I mean, I remember it exactly, obviously.
Yeah.
Towards the end of that play, like as Viper is saying, like, can we fight? Can we fight? I'm like, it looks good. It looks good. It looks good. Like we can still do this, even though we've been fighting around this Baron for 3 minutes. It hasn't been going well. We're behind in the game, right? All this stuff.
Mhm.
We know we still have an opportunity, and we take it, right? If it's a good fight, why not try?
Absolutely. I like that. I respect that playstyle so much more. If it doesn't work out, at least you tried, right? And you can learn
Mm-hmm.
from that. And I think that's a little bit of that not wanting to make a mistake. That's kind of affecting our general area in the region. And
Mm.
I like to see that we're progressing a lot in that area. I just wanted to ask you about y'all played against 100 Thieves next. A lot of big names there, in my purview, anyways, because Tenacity's been really hyped up. Kinvy's been really hyped up. Also, this is when Demonte was playing, if
Mm-hmm.
I have that correct. And so, first off, Tenacity and Kinvy, what should we expect from them? And then with Demonte obviously moving on to content creation, what what do you think about all these kind of things?
So I thought when I played against Tenacity and Kennedy last year, I honestly thought Tenacity was like the best player by far. But as far as I can remember, he didn't have a lot of standout performances this split. I'm hoping maybe top lane moves more towards carries, more carry-oriented stuff. I think that's what he was always the best on. He's done a really good job. I must commend him. He puts in the time and the effort to learn the champions he's not used to. Like
Mm-hmm.
he had so many Gangplank games last season because he was so bad at that champion at the start. But he put in the time, he put in the effort, and I think those are the new out of all the new players coming in, the ones that are willing to put in the time and the effort to improve and not just get some quick wins. Those are the players who are going to be the scariest down the road,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, you had teams like Evil Geniuses Academy finished 10th in the regular season, right? They looked
Yeah.
terrible, and then they made it all the way to 4th place, right, in Proving Grounds. So like in terms of looking at who's going to be good next year, like Evil Geniuses Academy is going to be great. I think Tenacity has a long runway to improve. Demonte, wish him the best in content creation. He's been up and down, up and down, up and down. Honestly, I still think he deserves a chance to play pro if he
Same
wants
here.
it, but it's the content creation path is also a fun one, so
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where he goes there. And then for Kenvi, he's been this hyped up jungler for really long, so I'm sure he's going to keep going forward.
Awesome. And speaking of EG Prime this time, Dan making that massive leap. I remember watching this guy. This was the guy that do it with Tarzan, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah, it was.
Dude, I remember watching him. His Kaisa is disgusting. Major Gala vibes after MSI. What do you think
No,
about his growth as far as throughout the amateur scene?
honestly, right now, I'm praying for him a little bit. It's really hard to make the jump all the way from amateur to LCS in one fell swoop. I mean, we saw with Niles, going from collegiate to LCS was very difficult. So and he's got some. Luckily he doesn't have like any massive shoes to fill. He's not like replacing Bang or when Tactical is replacing Doublelift, anything like that.
No.
But like definitely, I think as long as the pressure doesn't get to him, he has a solid team around him. And EG doesn't usually require their AD carry to carry because the rest of their team, they have Impact and Jizuke, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean he's got some strong solo lanes. He doesn't have to worry too much about being the focal point for every single game. And also I think the meta is good for him right now.
Yep.
So if there's any time for him to slot into the LCS, it's right now. And I'm hoping he takes it in stride, he takes it well, and learns a lot from it.
Absolutely. So now as we're coming into Proving Grounds, how has the atmosphere changed from back at Don Esports? Are we a lot more serious now? Is it more like, are there contracts and things like that? Are the orgs a lot more like fleshed out? How's that kind of evolved?
So I would say everything seems a lot more professional. There's contracts, there's interviews and broadcasts on the Academy channel, and you have people like LS and Captain Flowers coming in to do broadcasts, right?
Mm.
But underneath that, a lot of it is still just amateur. You got people disconnecting, internet problems, scrims getting canceled because somebody didn't wake up. Like you've still got it's still got some issues to work with. I will say one of the big improvements is the mixing with Academy. The fact that on NoOrg we were able to get so many Academy scrims meant we knew we were guaranteed we could have a decent level of practice and decent level of play, especially because a lot of those Academy teams are, taking strats from their LCS, from their main team. So that really levels up the entire region and everyone in amateur because, we go scrim Evil Geniuses Academy and we learn from them. We learn what their main team maybe is doing a little bit, and then we can go scrim like Barrage or somebody like that, and they can improve from that as well. So yeah, I mean the whole region is leveling up. There's still some of the classic amateur issues, like I said, which some of them are a bit compounded now because it's right before there was issues with like poaching and players leaving and stuff, but now there's contracts, right? There's actual legal ramifications rather than just people getting mad on Twitter.
Yep.
So we'll have to see. I think there's still a couple kinks to work out there, but I have faith that Riot is doing a good job moving forward. And everything so far has been pretty positive. So I'm excited for the future.
Okay, and mention the academy teams and all that kind of stuff. Do you notice like a difference between an independent org versus an academy or an amateur? Like, is there a major divide there, or is it relatively the same?
Do you mean like in terms of play or
Or
atmosphere?
yeah, atmosphere. Like any general differences as far as like the seriousness of it, or like the amount of input. You know what I'm saying, like coaches and things of that nature.
So probably the biggest difference is just access to resources, right? When you're on an academy team, like you're most likely living in LA,
Mm.
right? You're most likely going into an office every single day. You get to sit next to all your teammates. They give you food, they give you snacks. You have the coaches there with you. You have an analyst or two. You have access to watching all the main team VODs with their comms. You can talk to the main team coaches if you want, right? Like, you'll end up talking to your main team lane as well, right? Like when I was on Evil Geniuses Academy, Jizuke would just come up and be like, why'd you build this? Or like, why did you do this in this game, right? And we would have a chat about it and he'd give me some advice. Whereas when you're on these independent orgs, like this was literally just where I was the entire season, just sitting here in my basement with nothing really to go. Maybe sometimes my dad would bring me a hamburger or something, right?
Mm.
But otherwise, it's all up to us, right? It's up to us to make sure our internet's working. It's up to us to make sure we're eating and sleeping enough and working out. It's up to us to make sure we show up to scrims on time and we have good practice, right? We don't have a coach looking over our shoulder. So, yeah, just the access to resources is very different.
Awesome. So as you're, let's go into the finals. I have to mention, I didn't even know this at the time. Schernfire with the demonic embrace, Oblivion Orb,
Yeah.
Hecarim. I guess what do you think about that, and how does that reflect on Schernfire in general?
Well, I mean, it's Schoenfire's a creative player. He picked the Mundo a lot earlier
Mm-hmm.
in the Proving Grounds as well. Like, he's a player who I respect the players who try to find their unique angles to get advantages and to win.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I think in that game he recognized that their team was relatively low damage and we're going to struggle to kill our massive front line. So in the end, I think he made the decision like we need some damage, but don't know if ability power was 100% the right call. But you look at it and you can see the reasons why, right? Demonic Embrace is gonna go on everybody when he presses W and R, gonna make him really tanky because of the Demonic Embrace passive. The Oblivion Orb is gonna apply healing reduction to everybody without even having to hit them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's good cause there, and it shows that the wheels are turning, right? That he's always constantly thinking, he's trying his best to figure out ways to win the game, because it's not all standard is good, but it's not always the best,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
And another thing from that, just it's Cloud9 in general in the first series, almost no mythic items. It was really weird to me. I can't remember exactly what time this was. Was this around like early season 11, where we were not sure if mythic was the best rush, or what? I don't understand what the thought process was there, because in the final they built mythic rush per normal. What do you think their general thoughts were on that?
I mean, I'll be honest, it wasn't something I paid too much attention to, because a lot of it just depends on the champion and the situation, the context. Like, do you need to rush your mythic? Like, is there a better item component to buy first, like a Seekers or boots or something like that? Is there a full item that your champion wants to finish before completing your mythic? So yeah, I mean, in the end, honestly, I don't have the best answer for that, but it's everything in League just comes down to there's a million factors, and at the highest level, you think about all of them, and you come out and you spit out a decision, and you hope it's the right one. So
Yes. And so coming to the end of a new no org, um, were you aware that Anda and Viper were going to Immortals before you yourself decided to leave, or was that a decision that you made for another path that you're going to take?
So honestly, as a team, we never really made an official decision. We kind of just told ourselves like, hey, we're all gonna go to free agency because we all want to get picked up by a pro team, right? That's all of our dream, or like our goal, right, to get back into academy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we kind of all knew that there was a decent chance that we weren't going to play together again. And then, yeah, when Viper and Onda ended up getting picked up by Immortals Academy, we were super happy for them. The rest of us didn't quite find our spots yet, but I'm sure we're all looking forward to the next off season after spring split is over. And hopefully we'll be able to see them there. They get a free split this one time. They don't have to play against us yet, but we'll see them next year.
And moving on from that, money matches. Tarzaned. What is that like?
Yeah, so that was kind of crazy. Like the fact that I mean, I think, respect to him, he respects me as a player.
Mm-hmm.
We had our differences in the past, but, I respect his reasoning. He says, because I used to be bad, right? Like I used to be shit. Even though I think I've always been pretty good, but, I've improved a lot since then. He's recognized that. He invited me onto a couple of his teams. And honestly, like after we won the first one, like we just kept it rolling, right?
Yep.
We just kept running the same roster, kept
Keep the
running
money
it back.
coming.
We're happy to get the money. We're happy to get the publicity.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the most recent money match, he wasn't a captain, so he didn't get to pick me.
Unfortunate.
But I'm looking forward to hopefully playing some more here in the near future.
And do you have any like tips for an up and coming player, as far as from a challenger level to an amateur level? Like what is the best way? Do you think the path to pro is like there now? Like you can just go challenger in solo queue, do your best, show off what you got, maybe get in a few like Twitch rivals, maybe something like that, just something to get your name out there, and that will be enough to get you on one of these amateur teams? Or do you think there's a certain amount of like networking and stuff they have to do as far as when they're climbing from like just solo queue to that next step?
So I will say as a disclaimer, first off, do not discount networking. It's super important. Like people like to tell you like, oh, the best players will make it on teams. It's not always true,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes like lots of teams are made up of a group of friends and then they need an extra guy, so they pick them up, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But so definitely don't discount your connections. Like try to network as much as you can. But definitely like beyond that, the only things you can really do to get yourself noticed is get as high up in solo queue as possible, right? Especially right as the season is starting to end or as the split is starting to end. That's when the scouts will be watching.
Mm-hmm.
Get really high elo. Try to perform your best in all your solo queue games. Try to impress some people. And if you can get on an amateur team that is either LCS affiliated, so like Cloud9 Amateur, Evil Geniuses, Prodigies, Dig Mirage, um, or if you can get on an amateur team with players that have more experience and you think are better than you, they can teach you a lot. You'll learn a lot from them. You can get some of the competitive basics down. In the past, people developed a lot of bad habits in amateur because the level of play was lower. But as the level of play has risen now, you don't have to worry about that as much. So don't be afraid, of amateur. It's not too scary. You go have some fun competing, and yeah, best of luck.
Mm-hmm. Um, Now, I went on Twitter yesterday, going to casting, the collegiate finals, all that kind of stuff. Is casting something you're looking to do, or you're just kind of testing the waters?
I'm just kind of testing the waters. I got this opportunity actually because after the losers finals against 100 Thieves Academy, I was on the analyst desk and I talked and I hung out with them, right, and all
Mm-hmm.
that. And the producer messaged me, was like, "Hey, you were pretty good at that. Do you want to think about doing some more of it?" So right now, I just have this one day planned. I'm going to be on Saturday for the semifinals for the collegiate championship. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping I can have a lot of fun. I'm hoping I'm good at it.
Yeah.
So we'll see exactly how that goes. But yeah, I mean, if in the future, I get the ability to continue broadcasting, it's something that I definitely enjoy and look forward to. So it's definitely an option there. I will say, like in the end, like I want to compete. Like no matter what else I'm doing, like even just sitting here right now, like doing this interview is great. But I wish I was playing a match right now.
Yeah.
I wish I was scrimming. Like I'm already starting to get cold feet just after a month of not playing.
Yeah.
So in the end, I'm looking forward to coming through this off season. Talking to some teams, hopefully finding a spot in pro where I can be out in LA next year.
Mm-hmm.
But if that fails, then maybe I got casting, maybe I got some coaching. Who knows where it's all gonna go. The stream's been doing pretty well,
Yeah.
so we'll see. But hopefully everyone can see me on stage.
All right. Well, I think I've used enough of your time. I think I got what I need here. I appreciate you for coming by.
No, yeah, thank you very much. It was great.